Okay, so F1 is the world's greatest sport. You know, I know that, you know that, but not everyone knows that. So that's what this video is about. This video is going to provide you with indisputable proof that F1 is the greatest sport in the entire world. You will have a scientific response to every single sport as to why F1 is better. Now, you might be a bit skeptical at this point, and I would understand that, but let me ask you this. Would a man who has curtains like that lie to you? Before then, we sort of critically analyse all the big sports. I accept that you're going to probably want to look at my credentials, so we can take a look at those now. I'll just bring those up onto the screen. Looking pretty good. And if you're impressed by those credentials and you'd like to book me for like a uni lecture or something, then you can get my contact details there. Right, so the way we're going to do this is as follows. I'm going to go through the biggest sports in the world one at a time. Then I will prove F1 is better than all of them one by one, and we're going to start with the worst and then with the best. So, you know, we'll start with the easy ones, you know, the absolute pits of sport, and we'll move on towards the better ones, the ones that are perhaps harder to prove F1 is better than. So, up first, American football. I am not brave enough to do that. Okay, there is actually no order. There's no order. It's random. I just wanted to put that joke in there. I'm sorry. So I don't really know much about American football, if I'm honest. So I'm not really in a position to hugely dictate. But, you know, it's called football, but it's neither played with a ball nor with a foot. So it loses to F1 for having a deceptive title. That's that one dealt with. So on to darts. I mean, is it even a sport? I would argue it's a game, really. And the fact that the middle of the board isn't actually the best thing that you can hit is a bit ridiculous, to be honest, and I can't believe more people aren't asking that question. That's where at least archery have got it right, but where archery falls down is that no one cares. On to horse racing then, and this one's actually quite easy. Horses have 1 horsepower, F1 cars have about 1,000. Also, a whip in horse racing is quite a nasty thing, whereas a whip in F1 is a very attractive thing. On to golf then, and this is quite a tricky one because I can't really criticise it for being expensive because F1 is unbelievably expensive. I can't really criticise it for being bad for the environment because F1 is undoubtedly bad for the environment. But what I can criticise it for... Athletics is quite an easy one, to be honest. All I can say is that while F1 stars are pretty cool, you know, they're pretty dope, athletics stars are doping. Also, athletics tracks being an oval, as we all know, that is nowhere near as exciting as the circuits that we get in F1. And I'm afraid oval tracks, that does also rule out. In cycling, there is a whole host of things that we could talk about here as to why F1 is scientifically better. We'll focus on a few of them. Bikes have 2 wheels, whereas F1 cars have 4, so F1 is clear. Humans only have about 0.1 brake horsepower, whereas F1 cars have 1,000. The most prominent cycle race in the world takes place in France. I mean, they could have picked a more interesting country like any other. And I refer you to my earlier point about doping. In rugby, well, they can't even decide amongst themselves what the best version of their sport is, so how they hope they can convince anyone else is beyond me. On to cricket then, and if your sport is named after an extremely annoying orthopterian insect, then I'm afraid you're immediately on the back foot. But for cricket, I actually want to focus on DRS, which is their decision review system. Now, in cricket, what this means is that you're about to spend the next 14 minutes watching a slow-mo waveform to see if a ball has clipped a piece of wood. Whereas DRS in F1 means that we're about to see a 1,000 horsepower monster of a car surge past another at 180 miles per hour. F1 is clear. So I think it's tennis. Oh, sorry, I'm not really sure where those two have come from. I do apologise. Yeah, tennis undoubtedly has the coolest name of all the video referee systems with Hawkeye. Rugby just has TMO, television match official, you know, exactly what it says on the tin. Football has VAR, which just sounds like an Austrian saying far. And cricket, DRS, you know, we've already covered. However, what I will say about tennis is how drunk were they when they came up with that scoring system? And why do we all just accept it as though it's completely normal? Right, I'm going to talk you through how the scoring system works in tennis. Okay, winning you a point actually gets you 15 points. Then if you win 5 points, you win the game, but you haven't won the game because you need to win 6 games to win a set. Then if you're a woman, you need to win 3 sets to win a match, but for men it's 5 sets because of some weirdly patronising rule towards women, which everyone still seems to go along with. I mean, it's just chaos. It's absolute chaos. F1 rules are all over the show, and they're way more easy to understand than that. So, tennis loses out because of its ridiculous scoring system, frankly. Up next, then, it is the world's most popular sport. And I was worried about this one. I was worried about how we scientifically prove that F1 is better than football. But then I thought, what better way to do it than just ask the public? So I did. I asked 100 people if F1 is better than football, and 94 of them said that they thought F1 was better than football. Yeah, you know, there might be some questions over where I conducted the survey, but I asked 100 people and they gave me their answer. Now, because I know what people are like and they're going to dispute the validity of this survey, I do actually have another point on football, and it's to do with the sporting regulation documents. I find it absolutely ludicrous that the rules for football is a 230-page document. What are they talking about? It's a game where effectively you're trying to kick a round thing into a square thing, and they have 230 pages to talk about it. I mean, let's just scroll through some of it now. We'll drop it randomly on page 121. And Law 15, the throw-in. Why have we got A4 sheets of paper talking about throw-ins? It's just not necessary. The Formula 1 sporting regulations, an extremely complicated sport, has only 112 pages. They can discuss the entire of F1 and all its complicated rules and regulations around the race in less than half the number of pages it takes for them to talk about putting a round thing in a square thing. Why? Is it to increase the amount of reading done in the football community? So there's your answer. If anyone kicks off about this survey, just send them to the football regulation document and you won't see them for 3 weeks. Finally, we're going to take a look at boxing. And, well, if you think I'm daft enough to start insulting boxing as a sport, then I'm afraid you're going to have to think again. So all I've put for this one is it's an amazing sport, you know, but boxing is great. Please don't hurt me. But actually, if this channel will allow me, I'm going to leave you with a genuinely serious point about why F1 is one of the greatest sports. One of the actual, undeniable reasons that F1 is the greatest is because of the start. I don't care who you are or what your interests are. If you walk past the television and 20 cars are lined up on that grid, you're stopping and watching. And I don't think there's a single other sport that does that. Possibly penalties in football, but they're rare. You don't get them every single game. Every single race, everyone's stopping to watch the start of a Grand Prix. It's fantastic. That is, I'm afraid, all I've got time for on today's webinar. Just bear in mind, a lot of this was me just messing around. I'm not really taking pot shots at every other sport. Kids, go play sport. It's very good for you, even darts. So I'm chuffed, actually, that we've got through that in the allotted time. I was worried about getting cut off, but we've just about managed to fit everything